Hey everybody, this is Dr. Tim Peck here on Project Next, and I have an extremely special guest today who is my father. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you for serving, Dad.
Thank
Do
you.
you want to, yeah, do you want to introduce yourself to the world?
Sure. My name's Al Peck. I'm 80 years old, and I'm Timothy's father.
Yeah, well, I can't believe you're 80 years old. I can't believe that. That's insane.
Neither can
When
I,
did
but
that
that's the truth.
when did that happen? Yeah, so Uh, we'll get into that a little bit, actually. But you are a Vietnam combat veteran, which is why we are talking today, because you're a veteran. I heard something on the radio this morning. Um, it was a story of someone who had fought in Iwo Jima, and he was a very older man, and he said that the reporter said, "Thank you for serving." And he said, "Say thank you for my freedom instead." I was wondering, have you heard that? And people
I,
say
I
that, and
have, I have there.
yeah,
That seems to be creeping into our lexicon.
what
Um,
what do you think that's about? What's the difference between those two things? First of all, what does it mean to you when someone says thank you for serving? Let's start there.
well, I just assume that everybody is sincere when they say it, and they're not just doing it because it's the thing to do nowadays. You probably are aware that when we came home from Vietnam, we nobody told us thank you for serving, and so it's nice to hear. It's nice to be acknowledged, but thank you, for freedom is actually what we were doing over there. We were trying to um, trying to keep America safe.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for my freedom. Never said that before. From a civilian's standpoint, so I started saying that to everybody who was a veteran when I started in medical school and did a rotation at the VA when I was in medical school in the emergency department there as an emergency doctor. And on that rotation, they instructed us to say that to
Right.
every person that came into that emergency department. And so that's when I started saying it, and it became, even though I was told to at that point, then it became part of me, and I realized how special this was to. Um, it's not even the playing field to put it so that whoever you're speaking to has now elevated status in this room as
In
you're
the
you're
room, yeah.
recognizing
Mhm.
who they are. Um, and this weekend there was a healthcare debate for my congressional race, and there was a question about the VA, and we can talk a lot about the VA today, and where it went. And I started it with, the others had spoken for a bit, and I was, third or fourth to speak. And I said, "Can we just take a moment here? Who in this crowd is a veteran?" And those people raise their hand. They're proud of themselves that they're a veteran, that they fought for this country, that fought and protected us. And I said, "Thank you for serving," right? And that's how I started it. And I thought of you when doing that and told them your story, that yes, you're a Vietnam combat vet, but you came home and worked in social services and then founded the first homeless shelter for veterans in the United States, which is a super special piece of history that you own. And I want to get into that today as well.
Okay.
Um, and then from there, spoke about how special it is to have grown up with you and the lessons that you taught me, including you telling me to say thank you for serving. Um, and I almost got choked up while I was out up there because thinking about, you know, the lessons that you've given me to be respectful. And talked about it in the context of being with homeless people, right?
Right.
I grew up with you bringing me to the shelter, not really understanding too well at first that that was something different, that other kids didn't really go to shelters very much. Um, and I talked about how saying thank you to serving to those homeless people who might be having a mental health crisis at the moment, or, suffering from alcoholism or drug addiction, or just down and out for whatever reason. And in that moment, you can have this disheveled person who smells terrible and is on drugs or drinking, who's having a mental health crisis and unable to really connect with the world too much. And in that moment, you're saying, thank you for serving. It just it recognizes the innards inside of this person, the goodness in this person, the service of this person,
The
no matter of
humanity.
the humanity of this person immediately, to make that connection, but also make yourself almost subservient of that person in that moment, even though that they need help. They're the one who needed help in the moment. So just want to share that story and see what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That you would look forward to after a while of coming. You usually came in on Saturdays, and in the summertime you came in whenever you wanted to, and you would go straight to the mess hall and sit down. And I don't know what you were doing there, but everybody that came out said, "Oh, I met your son. He was oh, what?" And so you became part of the shelter. You were part of
Well,
the
you
ambiance.
you created that experience. You created that experience for me, but you created an experience for so many people who needed help. So let's talk about that. How did you even get to the point where you were um, thinking about opening a homeless shelter? Like, how does that even happen? How do you get yourself into that position? Um, can you bring us to that moment?
Sure.
Is this 1985-ish?
Yeah. 1986. The Mayor Koch, who the mayor of New York, was a World War II veteran. Never talked very much about it, but he was with the group of Americans that opened Dachau, get the people freed from Dachau.
I had
And
no idea that was the
yeah,
case,
no,
you
most
know,
people don't. And
and I was just in
and
Dachau. But go ahead.
he told us the story, and then he said, "Don't tell anybody." Oh, okay, he's dead, so I'll tell you. And the excuse me, and he wanted to start a veteran shelter just for veterans, 100 to 400 beds, and he had very real ideas on how this shelter should work. When if and so I applied for the job. The ad said you had to be in social service, you had to have your MSW, you had to work with drug and alcohol, which I had run a drug and alcohol agency for 8 years. You had to work in a institution, ran a boys' home for a couple of years. So I fit the bill, and you had to be a veteran. So I fit the bill, and when they screened it, they decided, oh, I'm the person that should meet the mayor. I went
Hmm.
in and met I guess Secretary of Veterans Affairs, who actually became a good friend and lifelong friend. And he said, "We're going in to see the mayor. Um, you let him talk, and then if you have any questions at the end, he'll entertain them." Well, we went in there for 10 minutes. He talked for 10 minutes, and he said to Bernie, who was the secretary, "Did you tell him all about it?" And Bernie said yes. He said, "Good. We'll see you at the shelter." And we walked out. So I was hired. So that's how it first started. Sort of very interesting. I've never been on an interview like that.
Yeah. So there you are. It started, and so how much does it cost to get a shelter off the ground?
You have to ask
Um,
the mayor that.
yeah. So he
It's
had to
out
raise the
of
money. Yeah.
it was city money. He didn't even raise it. It was city money, and he actually picked the building himself. And it was an old warehouse down in by the Midtown Tunnel, and in Queens, and he uh, he just brought a whole group of people together. We decided, what kind of beds, and all of that other stuff, and then it was opened, and there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare in opening it. The word went out, it's opened, and the teams that go out into the highways and byways started to bring people in that were veterans, and it filled up, and it went to 400 beds, 400 people, and we were never empty.
Yeah. You guys were never empty. There's always people wanting to get in.
We never had an empty bed. There was
Yeah.
always somebody who wanted to get in, and there was the city had a mechanism for moving people from one shelter to other and that sort of stuff, and they kept us filled with veterans.
And do you kind of remember that opening, that first day when people started walking in?
Yeah. Well, my part of the first day was I drove in and there was a parking spot for the director. So I pulled in and I walked towards the front door and turned around. It was a gorgeous, I think it was in September. It was a gorgeous day. And I looked, and there was the Empire State Building across the river, just standing there. And it was just, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And then I went in, and the security guys greeted me, walked me around, and all that other stuff, and we and showed me my office, and we went from there.
Yeah. Did you ever know anyone who came to the shelter from a prior life or from Vietnam?
Well, I had many publicity pictures from the Ninth Division of people in the jungle. Well, not the jungle. The Ninth Division was down in the Delta, so it was mostly swamps and things. And they would take pictures, and I had them all blown up and put into the shelter so that people had the feeling that this was not just another city shelter, which in 1986, if you were around, they there was not city shelters were not had no kind of good reputation. So one day, a guy comes in and sees the picture on the wall and says, "That's me." And he said, "Who took that picture?" And they said it was Al Peck that took it. He said, "That guy's crazy." So, but he came
Wait,
in, and
wait, why did you have the reputation of being crazy to this guy?
well, I was a second lieutenant, and if for all those people out here that were enlisted people, you know what you think about your second lieutenant. They
Okay,
don't know
got it.
anything as far as you're concerned.
Got it. All right. Well, that's amazing. So people know who you were. And it sounds like maybe you got their respect too. I'd say, all right. So you said that there was a certain way of thinking of shelters in the 80s, and you still kind of stigmatized just a place to put your head down and leave. But that's not what you built. You built something quite
No,
different for
yes.
veterans. Explain to us what the difference was. Bring us in there, bring us into the programs that you had, or what was the goal for people?
Well, I was working for the Salvation Army at the time, so they were the ones that had the contract with the city.
Uh-huh.
And so, unlike the other city shelters, this was a private shelter that was city funded. So we had to live by the city rules, but we could argue with the city rules. And one of the things that Koch said when I was talking to him was that anything you need, come to me. And when I got outside with Bernie, he said, "What he really means is come to me, Bernie, and I'll bring it to him." But uh, but I had a way into the city to overstep, including the director of homeless services in the for the city. So if I really got bogged down in city politics, I would use Bernie to try to get the best story on this, I think, to show is that the food was brought in by a vendor that the city hired. And they would bring in 400 meals 3 times a day.
Uh-huh.
Okay. It didn't matter if we had 200 people eating or, 500 people eating. They brought in 400 meals. The meals were awful. I mean, they were just, lunch was usually a bologna sandwich and an apple. So it was, our staff is sitting there, what can we do about this? And we realized from keeping logs that at the first week, we only had about 250 people eating because their checks had come in, things like that. And they had some money, so they weren't eating with us.
Right.
The
Better
second
options
week,
out there.
right, the second week, it grew a little bit. The third week, we went up to about 300. And then the fourth week, we may have 350. And that's the end of the month, and nobody has any funds. So we were paying X number of dollars for a meal. If we reduced the meals down to 250, and we then had a lot more money, so we could. It was the same amount of money, but it was for less meals, and we could give them better meals, and that's what we did. Well, the vendor, who I guess was, in with the city,
Right.
um,
You just took their money away. You took their yeah, their contract away. Yeah.
so the and it went all the way up to Koch, and Koch said, "Let him do what he wants."
Yeah.
So that was it, and we got the meals, and our meals were great. And we actually by dung luck picked a very good vendor. They were called Whitson's Food Services. They they used to give free holiday meals so
Mm.
that people would eat their meal, and then we would have all kinds of great stuff in the rec room for them afterwards. So it worked out very well. But that was sort of what I'm talking about. You have the way into the system.
Yeah. And then how about for mental health, drugs, alcohol,
Okay,
where do people get help?
mental health. We had we had 20 social workers that were responsible for the 400 men and moving out. Now, they're not for the most part, they weren't mental health workers. So we were saying, what can we do to because some of the people were pretty severely damaged. And the two things we did were we figured out a way of getting a hospital to give us an uh, you know what the numbers is, patient clinic in our shelter, so that everybody that came into the shelter was seen by the doctor, and they were all we could figure out what was the matter with them, and then we would ship them off to the VA to get treatment.
Hmm.
And the same with mental health. We had a psychologist and a psychiatrist come in twice a week, and they would deal with the special people who needed their needs, and then we would bring them to the VA to receive the long-term care that they would need.
Got it. Um, all right. So let's get into, this moment of, um, Here, I want to say this. I recently again heard on the radio this story. I haven't told you this, and I wonder if you know this. You probably do. And it was talking about the draft and how it worked. And so, I don't. Why would I know exactly how the draft worked? But I guess I learned that they had all 366 days of the year, and then they had someone kind of picking out um, of a hat the the birthday, the days, and if it matched your birthday, then that was where you were in the rank, and so they
That
picked
was your
all
number.
that was your number, and then within that they picked out letters um, for each of them, so that if you picked out if H was first and your last name was Henry, you were going. Um, and so your birthday, which is the 6th of September. Do you know what number it was? I do
Nine,
now. It was
nine.
six. It was six. It was six. It was six. It was six. And so, yeah, you were pretty high up there either way. So,
No, that
um,
we call that low.
you were pretty low down there. Yeah. I, I guess you were. Yeah. How old were you when that was happening? You were
Well, I was in high
already
school.
in.
I was in high school when I got my number.
You were in high school when you got your number, and then when you graduated high school, you went to military college.
Pennsylvania Military College, yes.
All right.
And
So
part of the
before,
decision was that
yeah.
I would rather go into a military school and go out as a lieutenant than go into regular school and come out as a private.
Right. So you've always said that, but is part of that due to the fact that you were sixth in the
Most definitely. That,
okay, okay.
that was a major consideration. I mean,
Got it. You knew you were
you
going.
could get a deferment for college, and at the end of the college, they just snatched you up and put you in made you a private. So I try
Yeah.
to be a little finessed and get in as a lieutenant, go in ROTC.
Okay. So you were um what you were a senior in high school when your
Mm-hmm.
number was
Oh,
called?
right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was 18 when I started my senior year.
So you were 18, you're in high school, you got that number. What was that like? Did you watch the TV? Did you listen to the radio for this? Like, were you with your family when they were drawing out these numbers? Do you
Listen,
remember?
I remember I was younger then. They made all of those decisions, um, uh, before I was 18. So I remember them
Okay.
doing it, but I didn't. But
Yeah.
when it came time, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Super interesting process. And that explains a lot, right? There's a lot of pressure. And so you knew you were going, and so you wanted to have some control over that and went to military school
Right.
to become an officer. And so Pennsylvania Military College, what is it like to be in military college? What's that like?
Well, Pennsylvania Military College, which we have to be honest about, is no longer in existence. Some big mojo bought it out and made it a a civilian college because it was struggling for money. But at any rate, it was older than West Point, the Pennsylvania Military College, and we used to say the West Point took their well, their uniforms from us. We had very, very simple. You never say that to a guy from West Point, but we liked it, and it was the first year we were they called plebes in West Point. We were called rooks, and that lowest piece on the chessboard. And we were the lowest piece on the chessboard, and got all the abuse and all the things that you hear about. My favorite one was they would call for a mattress check at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you had
Uh-huh.
to take your mattress out into the hall and stand at attention next to your mattress. So they knew everybody had a mattress, or at least that was the logic. And then you had to go back into your barracks, put the mattress back and make a bed so they could come in and flip a quarter on it. And if the quarter didn't flip, they pulled it apart and you had to make it again. This was 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Your college experience at 3 in the morning was different than mine. Um, as a civilian, as you say. So thank you for serving for sure. That makes me want to say thank you for serving. That's pretty insane that that's your college experience. All right, so you're getting close to graduation. You know you're going to be leaving, or what? What
well,
did you
well,
have any choice of what happens to you after
yeah, at the end
graduation?
of your first semester in senior year, you
Hmm.
submit a list of 3 branches of the military of the army that you want to be in. So I said, and one of them had to be a combat arm. So I would quartermaster, and I forget what the other one was, and I put in artillery. I figured that'd keep me back from people shooting at me if I had a chance. So about 3 weeks before graduation, the list comes out, and where am I? I'm in the infantry. So
It wasn't even an option.
that wasn't an option. That was I don't know what they were doing, but they make him believe that you had a choice.
You did not. They told you where you're going. So you're in the infantry, and oh man, that must have been a moment.
Oh, that was a moment. I was not happy. It took me about a week to reconcile that with myself and say, okay, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what the Army tells you you're doing. That's what the USA tells you you're doing.
Yeah,
So did you?
it's just like standing next to your mattress in the hallway.
Right,
You just do it.
you just do it. All right. And so, oh man, that's a change. That's a 180 for hearing for what you're going to be doing with your next few years. And then what happens after graduation? Do you get any time off, or
Well,
where do you
yes, you
go?
got time off mainly because the people from West Point went in right away,
Hmm.
and then because your rank was based on when you start what date you started. So all the West Pointers were outranked all of us when we went in, um, uh, and they spread us out because on ROTC school, there were many of them around the country, and so they had to spread us around. And I went in February, um, actually Valentine's Day.
Okay. On Valentine's Day. And then where did you meet mom in this whole thing? What?
Um,
How does this happen?
Before I was, nobody wanted to hire you because you know you were going to go in the military in February. So I was working in the florist delivering flowers, and
Hmm.
and like any buddy of that age, who went out to pubs and discos and things like that. And I walked in once and said, "Whoa, look at this lady." And I sat down beside her, got her number, and the rest is
The
history.
rest is history. So
55
you
years of history.
55 years of history since then. And she took a chance on you knowing that you were going to Vietnam in
Well,
February,
she
or
didn't
going
know.
or
She didn't know when we first met, but yes,
okay.
right. But she always said, "Well, you're not going to go to Vietnam. You go to Germany," because some of the infantrymen went to Germany. When I got my orders to go to Vietnam,
Hmm.
we were engaged and had a wedding date. And I said to her, "If you want to back out of this, you know,
Right.
and she said no. So we went for it. And I was I was stationed at Fort Ord, California, working as a training officer. So brought her out to Fort Ord and then brought her back home and then went to Panama, and then went to Vietnam.
And what were you doing in Panama?
Jungle warfare school. The great irony of the Army. We went to jungle warfare school. Great school. Learned an awful lot about how to fight in the jungle. When I got to Vietnam, they sent me to the Delta. There was no jungle.
Okay. So I didn't realize that. So you did jungle warfare school, but you never really used those skills.
But not really, because they were we had to learn a whole. They gave us another 2 weeks of training when we got there to learn how to walk through mud and pull people across the rivers with the ropes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're in Vietnam now. Do you remember the first time you were out on the Delta, not
Yeah.
in a not in a barracks?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I it I showed up at my assignment, which was the 6th of the 31st A Company, and 2 days later, I was given a platoon, and one day later, they sent us out.
Yeah.
So I had a real, and this platoon had been there. The officer had been wounded, so they they didn't have an officer; they only had a sergeant, and I became their officer. Like I said, enlisted men were not enamored by lieutenants coming in and telling them what to do that they've been doing for
Right.
6, 8 months.
You're completely green. This is your
Right.
first time out there. There's some
And
embattled people.
I had
Yeah.
the telephone and I had the map.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that must have been interesting. But they took your orders just like you did.
That's
You
right.
like you were told to go to infantry school and or infantry, and you were told to take your mattress out at school at 3 a.m. So yeah, everybody kind of just goes with it. How do they keep that kind of order when you are out in the field? Um,
Well,
yeah,
you as a lieutenant uh, have to realize what the situation is, and that you have you have authority but no respect at the very beginning. So you can give all the orders you want, but are they necessarily going to follow them? Well, what I noticed when I first went out, when I started saying things, they all look at the sergeant to see if they should do
yeah,
it.
fair, very fair. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I quickly made friends with the sergeant, and I promised him I'd get him out of the field in 2 months if he, stayed with me and taught me everything I needed to know. And he did that, and I kept my bargain, and I got him out of the field,
how did you?
much of the chagrin of my platoon.
Yeah, how did you do that? How did you?
I just told the colonel that this was my deal, and he said, "Oh, that's pretty cool," and he pulled him out.
Amazing. And so, you're in the field. Um, yeah. Do you want to talk about any of that? What that was like?
Sure.
Can
Um,
you bring us there if you can? I know
well,
that's a hard ask.
it's a hard. Well, anybody that's seen a rice paddy, and we have a few in the United States, we spent tons of time walking through rice paddies. Now, the SOP for walking through an ice paddy was we were supposed to walk through it, not on the berms around the edges. Well, you learn very quickly, and they said the reason was that because the berms could be booby trapped, which was true. But you quickly learn that if the berm was well worn and had these little red spots on it, that was beetle juice, but people used to chew it. Their teeth started going. You could walk there. It was fine. The locals walk there. You can walk there. If you saw a whole lot of weeds on it, you don't walk there. But
Got it.
but if you had, we had a captain that was a West Pointer, and he followed the rules totally. So we first started the slog through the rice paddy. Well, if you were a rice farmer and you had 16, 18 people walking through your rice field, how would you feel about it? So
Right.
yeah, we weren't making friends by doing that.
Got it.
Right. And
Yeah.
then there were tree lines around all over the place, and the bad guys used to get in the tree lines and shoot at us. And by the time you could figure out where they were gone. Um, so
Mhm.
it was a you know it was just slogging in the mud every day. And if it was rainy season, you had we we used our ponchos as tents, not as actual ponchos, because you put your poncho on, there's no breathing in it.
Right.
It's like a bag, and so we were already sweating. So it was they were useless.
Yeah. All right. So you're out there and you're in Vietnam, but you also were in Cambodia for some of it.
Yeah.
What was that about?
The B-52s were dropping bombs in Cambodia, and we had to go in and see what they hit. We flew in a helicopter, and if you've ever looked at pictures of Vietnam or Cambodia with the B-52 bomb holes in them, they're enormous. They look like a little pond, and it being that wet, the minute they hit the ground, they filled in with the water. So what the
Mhm.
heck did we know what they hit? So
Mhm.
they were really more interested in what how many people they killed. So we our code book had numbers in it, and so we would count the holes, multiply it by the code book number, and send it in. The
And that was the
numbers
number.
in Vietnam are unbelievably wrong.
The numbers are of casualties you're saying
Right.
are very wrong because of the way it was counted, sending people out into the field to count.
Right. They told us towards the end, if you have a blood trail, you count that. If you shot
Okay.
somebody, they were bleeding, you didn't find them, you counted them.
Okay. So unclear. That's interesting. And I mean, what did that work feel like when you were asked to go do that? To go out
But
there and
it
count. Yeah.
becomes it becomes like, okay, that's what you do. I mean, uh, what you might be leading up to is I'd stepped on a landmine when we were going through, and
Yeah.
wound up getting out of the. Uh, I lost my.
No, I'm here. I'm
I
here.
got
I'm
out of
just
my. I went to the hospital, went to rehab, and they decided I wasn't hurt badly enough, and they sent me back to my unit. I was a specialty officer in the basement for a month, and the colonel calls me up and says, "I want to see you." I come up to see you, and there's this big, tall sergeant standing in his office, and he said, "We've run out of officers. You have to go back out on the field."
hmm
Now, think of it. I was still sitting on a donut because part of the shrapnel cut up my rear end, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm safe down in this bunker down in the middle of Tan An, which was an enormous base, and now I've got to go back out there. But you look at the colonel says to me, "Well, I'm giving you the best sergeant I have."
hmm
Uh, that makes up for it. But anyway, what are you going to say? No. I mean,
Right.
you get yourself court-martialed. So we went back out in the field. Uh, Truth be told, he was the best sergeant I'd ever seen. So he did a wonderful job, and we worked very well together. But it was it was first couple of weeks were scary.
Yeah.
Every noise I would jump at.
Why the first couple of weeks for that assignment versus the first couple of weeks of the original assignment
because
because you were, yeah.
I was stupid in the first couple weeks. I didn't know what was going on in the
And so
first time. And the second time out, I knew what was going on.
you knew what you were going on, and you had just been wrecked by a landmine,
Hmm.
so you knew it was real.
Yeah, you knew it could happen. It could happen in a flash. So,
Yeah.
and so you wanted, you had. I was the officer. I couldn't show fear, so you had to swallow it, and you know, and that's what you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that for us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for my freedom, is what we're supposed to
Thank
say
you.
now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, all right. So you went back out. You're now smarter, and smarter makes you more scared. And yeah, when did you finish? When did you know you were done? How does that happen?
Well, um, they were working on the Cambodian incursion, and there was this um, uh, heavy mortar and cannon place out in the middle of nowhere. It's called the Plain of Reeds. That was going to be a support element for the people going into Cambodia. And one night they were attacked and their lieutenant got killed. So since they were pulling everybody out of the field, there was nobody going to be running around. They're all running into Cambodia because they were sending people home at the time. So there weren't very many people left in Vietnam when we went to Cambodia, and so they sent me out there, and that's what I was doing. We were cannon fire, and getting fire missions, and all that other shooting into Cambodia, and the if somebody was wounded in Cambodia and wasn't too badly hurt, they would drop them off with us. They'd put up a MASH unit there so that they could, if they were really hurt, they'd fly into Saigon. But if they were not so hurt, they drop them off with us.
Right. And then you have 13 months of is a tour. Is that right?
No, 12 months is the tour. Um, but they told me that if I extended for a month, I could, when I went home, I would go home. So I wouldn't have to do the last 3 months because it was a waste of their money to send me someplace, get me all set up, and then I go home anyhow. So I said, that sounds good. and I extended for a month and went home and got home and went and left. I signed out in San Francisco. I was out of the army.
What was the plane ride like back home?
The one from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Well, there were people doing drugs. There
Yeah.
were, and some of them did too many. And
Okay.
when we got to Japan, they had to evacuate them. There were the stewardesses were handing out those little bottles of uh, alcohol like they were whiskey, like they were, candy, and so people had a nice buzz. And one minute they'd all be singing, the next minute they'll be arguing with one another. It was really until about, and when we left Japan, all of a sudden everybody just fell asleep.
Yeah. Interesting. So it was a party of sorts
Right.
until it was a bar on wings until you everybody had been partied out and you all fell asleep. And so you landed in San Francisco?
Yep. Landed
And
in San Francisco Airport.
and
Um, and there was a a place there where you could go to muster out if you were indeed mustering out, and
what does
they,
muster out mean? I don't even know.
leaving the army, leaving
Okay.
Okay, they there were big long lines with people going through and processing and doing all the things they're doing. The One of the good things about being an officer then was you went to the front of the line, so you got in, I got out. I got processed out in about an hour and a half.
Okay. And then you're out, and what? Yeah,
I
yeah.
went to
What's
San
the next
Francisco
step?
Airport. I went to San Francisco Airport, climbed on a plane, flew home. Called up the family, told them I'm there. They met me at the gate. In those days, they didn't have uh, guys checking you. Oh, they met me at the gate
Okay. And what was
with
that
a
like
big
to see your?
sign saying "Welcome home." I was lucky. A lot of guys didn't got there and just had to walk off to wherever they were going. But the family responded very nicely.
Yeah. And it was all your sisters and your mother and
My
father
sisters, my
and
wife, and my mother, and my father, and my father-in-law.
your father-in-law.
Mm.
What did that feel like?
It made me feel great. I mean, you get off the plane, you walk down the gangplank, you walk in there. There's your wife. You can hug her, and your mother and your sisters, who all thought you were a pain in the ass until all of a sudden when you came home, and now you were wonderful. It was wonderful, and I cherish that because I hear so many stories about guys who did not um, have a very good welcome.
Yeah. So you from there, you got to get a job. You got to be a civilian again,
Mm-hmm.
and you decide to be a social worker.
No, actually, I didn't know what the hell it was going to be,
Yeah.
and the VA had a thing where you could go in and take tests and try to figure out what you would should be in life. And I uh, I took the test, and it said I should be a teacher, a priest, or a social worker.
Those are your options. Okay.
So I had been a teacher, substituting teacher. I had my teaching degree and my license, and I had been a teacher, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do in life. Being a priest, I don't think that would work with a wife, and so I went and got a social work job. But somebody, um, somebody uh, counseled me, saying you get one that they will send you to for your master's degree, because being a social worker without a master's degree is a waste of time. So I went to work for Angel Guardian Home, and they indeed sent me to be a social worker. They paid for it, and the VA paid me too. So it helps. It helped with the babies coming.
Right. So you had kids coming along. Got it. Um, all right. So you were doing all that work, and then it brings us back to, you find yourself running a veteran shelter for a homeless veteran shelter. And how many years were you doing that?
I did that for 8 years.
Yeah.
And then I was promoted to the director uh, of social services. So that was part of my
So one of the things in social services meant
all the
services for
all the programs that we ran.
like
For
what?
like
Yeah.
children's foster care, AIDS program. We had programs that we had both shelters for individuals and shelters for families. We had for a short period of time, we had the largest family shelter in the world. Um, the, that the city decided to put together and then decided to take apart. It was but my heart was always with Borden Avenue Veterans Residence, and I drove by it while I was coming to work, and so uh, there was probably one morning every week that I would stop and see how things were going on,
Yeah.
which like the
And
guy that would take my place.
and so, we're getting to a point in your career then, you're working in downtown Manhattan, and um, the it's 2001, it's 9/11, and
Hmm.
you're in downtown Manhattan. So
Hmm.
you want to bring us to that day?
Well, it started off with Sunday night. Uh, Estelle, my wife, had got appendicitis, and so we went, and she had her appendix removed. You couldn't visit until noon the next day, so so I said, well, I had a meeting, and to this day I can't figure out what the meeting was or why it was so
You don't
important.
remember. It's so important to go and go to that
But I
meeting.
said
Yeah.
I can go to the meeting and then I can leave and I can get back by 12 o'clock. Well, I'm standing in my window in my office, and I could see straight down to the World Trade Center, and it was something I looked at a lot because it was the buildings here, 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 and there's the World Trade Center. Um, I came up in the elevator, and the place was screaming. Everybody was running around. The first plane had just hit, and I so we did a lot of sort of organizing, getting televisions, doing a lot of stuff. And then I went into my office and I was standing there looking out at the flames and stuff when the second plane hit. And if the you usually don't see when they show you the second plane, they usually don't see it from my angle. I saw it came in off the bay, went into the building, and then all the flames came out the the other side. It was traumatic as hell, and the first thing that ran through my mind was all the people that had just died. It was it was overwhelming, but the heads of the Salvation Army pulled everybody together, put me in charge of all of the social services for the World Trade Center, and gave me $64 million to play with, so that we did a lot of good work for a lot of people
Yeah.
um, during that time.
Yeah. And I mean, you didn't really come home very much during that time. I mean, I was already out of the house, but as I understand it, so yeah, what were you doing? What does that day
Well,
to day look like? What did you have to build? You have to build a whole operation overnight.
well, you figure that we were working with the city and eventually with the federal government. Um, and what we were doing was filling in the holes that they couldn't or wouldn't do. So we were down there. The Salvation was down there just ringing the hole, the pit, um, with giving food and counseling and everything that it could do. But it
Um,
went way beyond that. It went
yeah.
to you know setting up places, finding places for people to live, because there were a lot of people. You always hear about the people from Cantor Fitzgerald and everybody else that was in there. They were pretty, even they were pretty well off, but the people up in the top um, were um, were in the excuse me, the restaurant, were a lot of people that didn't have very much at all, and they lost everything. So we took that on as a job. We also worked with the federal government and set up a whole feeding station for um, the men in the pit because they couldn't leave. because they were dirt, they were filthy, and they had to get cleaned first. So we organized a clean area where they could take a shower. So the federal government paid for it all, but we were the ones that were putting it together. And
Sure.
we went out to the landfill in Staten Island and worked with some of the men out there because their job was to scan through all the uh, all the beams and everything that were out there and find the body parts.
Yeah.
So so we also worked at the right up where you went to school, the
At
coroner,
NYU at Bellevue. Yeah.
yeah, the coroner's office, and because
Bellevue
those guys
Medical School.
those guys really needed a lot of help with what they had to do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Dad,
and
I want
well,
to keep. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just
No, I
saying I
was
want to
just going to
keep
say,
doing this. I want to keep doing this, and then I just cut you off just for a moment. Uh, at a different time, if we can, keep going into
sure,
everything. I think
sure,
we did this for Veterans Day, but there's a lot more of the story to unpack that I think people will want to hear. So,
okay,
yeah. But for today, let me say it one more time. Thank you for serving us. Thank you for everything you did, not only protecting our freedoms in Vietnam, but everything you did as a career afterwards of a career of service, from being a social worker to forming the first veteran shelter for homeless veterans to serving us in 9/11 and many things beyond that. So just thank you.
thank you,
All right. Gonna sign off now, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. This has been a pretty incredible uh, episode to hear your kind of biography, if you will, your resume, if you will, but getting like really deep into each of these issues. And there's again so much more to unpack. So thank you.
thank you.
All right, bye.